I'm Chef Yankel, and this right here, this is what I live for. You want to learn how to make the perfect bone-in, grass-finished rib roast? Keep watching. All right, let's get started. This is a bone-in rib roast. It's got 4 bones. It is basically the ribeye plus the bone in one big package. Super easy to roast and prepare. I'm gonna show you how to do it incredibly simply. And honestly, this is my favorite cut of meat to prepare for a group of people, but I'm gonna show you how to make it perfectly and how to carve it. Let's get started with my holiday herb butter. You can find the recipe for this on the YouTube channel. It is incredibly simple to make and it works with everything. I love putting it on beef especially because there's a little bit of citrus in there that adds such a lovely tang and flavor and just zesty element. And so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit it standing up, bones up. It's gonna cook really evenly like this. You can just see there's such nice marbling. It's domestic beef. It's grass-fed, grass-finished, raised the right way, and I absolutely love it. The flavor, it's some of the best I've ever tasted. So I'm just gonna brush it all over, and I've dedicated all this butter to the rib roast throughout the cooking process, and so I'm not concerned about dipping my brush in, going into my bowl. This is all gonna go on the raw meat. You can't have too much butter on a rib roast, I'm telling you right now. It's gonna be gorgeous. Now I've seasoned the butter slightly in advance, but I'm gonna add a healthy pinch of coarse salt and pepper once I'm done rubbing it, because honestly with a rib roast like this, with such tremendous flavor, you wanna make sure you capture all of that, and adding that seasoning is really gonna bring it all out. All right, so we've got a good coating on all sides. I'm just gonna sit it over and make sure that I've got the edges as well. One tip with the holiday butter, or any butter that you're gonna use, or any type of fat that you might use to dress a cut of meat, is warming it up slightly in advance makes it a lot easier to apply. That is perfect. We're gonna sit that back up. And now, healthy dose of coarse salt. You can choose kosher salt, works just fine here. I'm using Malden sea salt. That's a nice, flat crystal, and it really doesn't melt too much under heat, so you get that crunch of salt that really makes each bite so enjoyable. Lots of coarse, fresh cracked black pepper. Go all sides here, even the bone side. Let's get a little bit more of that butter spread on the back there. Beautiful. A little bit more black pepper. Be liberal with your seasoning. This is a big, robust cut of meat. It needs all that flavor. All right, stand it back up. That's it. It's going into the oven, 375. It's gonna take roughly 90 minutes. What I recommend is you set a timer. Every 30 minutes, you take the temperature with a digital thermometer. That means there's gonna be no mistakes, and we're gonna remove it when it hits 110 degrees and let it rest for about 30 minutes before we slice it. Going into the oven, see you in a bit. That is gorgeous. Now you'll notice a couple of things. Number one, I pull it out and it's temped at around 110 degrees. That's a lot lower than a mid-rare temperature, but the reason I do that is because it's grass-finished beef and it tends to speed up when it hits that temperature around 110 and cook quickly. I wanna make sure it rests to a perfect medium rare, so I pull it out a little bit early. 110, 115 if you're leaning towards like a medium, 120 if you want a mid-well. Now you'll also notice that it has shrunk a little bit, and that's because there's a fair amount of fat and water that cooks off during the process. Just take that into consideration if you're counting for guests. It's something that happens with all protein. You've certainly noticed it if you've ever cooked a steak before, and so don't be surprised when it shrinks down a little bit. That's part of the process. So we're gonna let it rest for 30 minutes, and you can honestly let this rest for a couple of hours. If you wanna cook it well in advance of your meal, you can refrigerate it and put it back in the oven an hour before at a lower temperature, like 280, or you can just let it rest an hour or so and serve it. 30 minutes later, it's still gonna be warm inside. It'll actually have reached a perfect medium rare. So we're gonna let it rest. I'll see you in a bit. It's rested beautifully. There shouldn't be too much moisture on the tray, but some of it might come out from wherever you inserted the thermometer. Make sure you save those juices. I've got a little carafe here that I'm going to pour those juices into, because dripping those on the steak after you're done slicing is gonna make it next level. All right, let's get to slicing. Be careful, the pan may still be hot. Oh, that is so tender. So when it comes to carving a rib roast, there's a couple of ways you can do this. The easiest way is to take all of the bones off first. and then cut those individually because someone's gonna want them. And then we slice the steak into what basically ends up looking like prime rib. Here we go. I'm gonna insert the knife right against the bones and just cut downwards, angling the knife against the bones. That way I'm cutting as close to the bone as possible, leaving as much meat on. And then as soon as I reach the bottom, you kind of just feel for where that space is that it can cut cleanly through. And we've got an absolutely gorgeous rack here. And you can see when you've got that color right up against the bone, that's a perfect medium rare that we're working with. So I'm gonna leave that there for the moment. Now, for slicing the rib roast, we're basically gonna slice it as though we were carving ribeyes. So you can see, if you're familiar with the ribeye, we have the eye, we have the cap, and then we have the point right here. And I'm just gonna do nice, thick slices. Moment of truth. This is my favorite moment every time. Did it work out perfectly? I feel like it may have. It's beautiful, it's tender, it's so juicy because we let it rest. I mean, that is magnificent. Make sure you use a sharp knife. The extent that you wanna keep that crust on the ribeye really adds to your eating experience. Oh, gosh. That is gorgeous. I don't know how I could stop myself from eating this, but I know everyone needs a picture of it first, so I'm gonna go right onto the tray. Here we go. Oh yeah. Now for the bones. I'm gonna find that natural point of separation right at the base of the bone where it curves up. You're gonna find there's a point where the bones don't meet. Easy to cut through right there, like so. Those are just gonna dress it up so beautifully. That is, by the way, chef's pick right there. That crunchy bone with a little bit of meat left on it. Got the nice sear from the outside. I'm gonna pour some of that fat pan drippings right into my little pitcher right here, and then we can drizzle that on the steak as needed. And finally, you wanna add a little bit of salt at the end now that you've exposed the interior. Just a healthy pinch right across the top. Find a really nice salt. A smoked salt would work beautifully right here. A coarse, flaky sea salt. Folks, it really doesn't get easier than that to create a meal fit for royalty. And this is something that people will remember forever. Not to mention, it is such a fantastic product. If you can get your hands on it, go for it right now. Actually, I'm gonna go for it right now. We have to try it. This is the most amazing piece of beef that I have ever cooked. It's just unbelievable. The flavor, the texture, it melts in your mouth. I'm Chef Yankel. Go make something magnificent. Have a wonderful holiday season. I'll see you next time.